What is going on YouTube? It's Al from Exiles here, and yeah, it's been quite a long time. I do apologise, but consider this a big old reset for the Yu-Gi-Oh lifestyle. As of recently, I've had to relocate to an area where the competitive Yu-Gi-Oh scene is a lot more. Well, there are so many more powerful players in this area, and it's really opened my eyes as to what I really need to do in order to actually be successful in playing this card game. My current work schedule doesn't really permit for me to play as often as possible, maybe once a week if I'm lucky. But when I do, it's incredibly difficult, and I had to basically get rid of, well, let's just say most of my other decks to invest in a deck that I have wanted to play and own ever since it got dropped in the OCG and revealed, and that is formerly known as the Zhang Zhan, now is the Swordsoul archetype. One of the decks coming out of Burst of Destiny that is hyped up to be one of the stronger decks post Burst of Destiny, alongside Fluonderies, which is another deck I was very interested in making, but at the moment, due to its affordability, it's a lot more popular than Swordsoul. But I would say there's about an equal distribution of each type of player. Now, you may be wondering, well, every other video Alan used to put out would have been budget and affordable, but unfortunately, this is not the time. Now we are going competitive. We are making sure that we can pick up as many wins as possible, and we can bring back some locals reports when using this deck. But don't worry, I still own some fun decks that I'm working on, but the process is going to be a lot longer, especially in my current situation where doing more life-oriented things is a little bit more important at the moment. But without further ado, I thought I'd give you my deck profile, which has been doing very well for me recently. And yeah, let's go into it. And a big thank you to Jam Jam Cards UK for setting me up with these Swordsoul cards that I have wanted for so long. Yeah, some very popular Yu-Gi tubers and Yu-Gi-Oh vendors in the area I'm currently located in. So once again, thank you very much. So without further ado, let's start and talk about the first three of in the deck. We are talking about Swordsoul of Mo Yi. Now, the Swordsoul main deck monsters are a range of level 4 and level 6 worm monsters, which have effects that can generate tokens. Now, when Swordsoul of Mo Yi is normal or special summoned, you can reveal a Swordsoul card or worm in your hand to bring out a token, which is level 4 water type, water attribute tuner monster with 0 attack and defense. Using these tokens, you can perform synchro summons, and Swordsoul of Mo Yi and its other counterparts have abilities that activate when they are sent to the graveyard as synchro material. And Swordsoul of Mo Yi, in fact, lets you draw a card when that happens. So very important to get your plays started. But again, one drawback to make this deck a bit more fair is that you have to reveal a card in order to do so. We're then playing 2 copies of Swordsoul of Tyre. This card is a lot more useful in the 10U variant, which I'm playing, and I do believe is the superior variant, but other players who believe that more hand traps is better, despite Crossout Designator running rampant at the moment. I believe at the moment with the stronger decks that may get hit by it before January, playing this deck going blind second is the way to go. Swordsoul of Tyre is the wind attribute as opposed to Mo Yi being the water attribute. Swordsoul of Tyre can activate its effect, which is an ignition effect to banish a Swordsoul card or a worm monster in your graveyard to produce the same type of token. And if it is used as synchro material, you can send a Swordsoul card or worm monster from your deck to the graveyard, which is really cool. This is incredibly synergetic with the rest of the 10Us, who all have effects when they are in the graveyard or hand. Next, we're playing the card that I believe is incredibly broken over here in the TCG, because if it's used as synchro material, it burns for 1200. Now you're thinking, well, why that? Well, time rulings are a bitch. So you can drop this, going late into time, burn your opponent for 1200, and whoopsie daisy, you've gone into time. I do not agree with that style of play, but sometimes when you've got to do what you have to do to win. He can special summon himself along with a tuner token, if you so choose, by discarding another worm, monster, or sword soul card from your hand. He's level 6, so you can go into level 10 synchro plays with him. Next, we have the Honorary Sword Soul, Incredible Ecclesia the Virtuous. Going second, this card is fantastic because you can just special summon it for free while your opponent controls more monsters than you. It can quick effect tribute itself out to bring a Sword Soul out of the deck, and it also has an additional effect when if a fusion monster on your side of the field was in the graveyard that turn, it can add itself back. Now on to the Tenyis. 3 Ashuna. The Tenyi monsters can special summon themselves from the hand if you control no effect monsters, and while you control a non-effect monster on the field, they have effects in the graveyard, which can trigger by banishing them. So for example, Ashuna, you can banish itself to summon a Tenyi from the deck, however, it locks you into worms for the rest of the turn. Vishuddha is the one that can banish itself from the graveyard to target a card your opponent controls and bounce it back to the hand. Adhara is the one that can retrieve one of your banished Tenyis or worms from your from banished by banishing itself back to, obviously add it back to the hand. And the one that I am testing at the moment is the 1 Tenyi Spirit Shathana, because if a non-effect monster you control is destroyed, for example, your one of your monks, by a card effect, you can banish it to bring back that destroyed non-effect monster and pop a monster on your opponent's side of the field non-targeting. This is incredibly useful in combination with Blackout, because you can use Blackout to target your monk and then target 2 cards your opponent controls, pop them, and then the monk will get destroyed, and then you can bring it back with the Shathana and pop another monster on the opponent's field, which is feels really bloody good when you resolve it. 3 Sword Soul Emergence. This is the rotor of the deck, which can also search any worm monster as long as you control a synchro. If it's banished, it can modulate the levels of your Sword Soul or worm monsters by 1 up or down, so it can help getting you into your level 7 and 9 plays. 1 Summit, which is a monster reborn for Sword Souls, or if you control a synchro monster, it can bring back any worm, and it does the same thing, so it can modulate levels if it's banished. 3 copies of Vessel. I think this card is pretty broken. Some people are dropping it, some people are bumping it down a few copies. I think it's fantastic, because if you open this and any Tenyi, it's pretty much you can get any level 8 synchro to start your plays. So you open a Tenyi, you go into Monk, you use this, dump Ashuna, search Adhara, special summon that Adhara, banish the Ashuna to summon a level 7, and you've already got like a Draco Berserker or a Baxia or a Chi Zhao on your side of the field. So that's that. 3 Desires. This card is incredibly free in this deck. It gives additional attack to your Cheng Ying, and it lets it trigger its effect, which is fantastic. You're playing a lot of 3-ofs as well. Now for your support, you've got 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More. If we're blinding second, we want to see this. Now for the traps, we've got 2 Sword Soul Blackout. This card is busted. It's basically an offering to the Snake Deity. You have to target 2 cards exactly your opponent controls and 1 worm on your field to destroy them all, essentially. However, if it's banished, it can generate a tuner token for you, level 4. So that's something to consider. We've got 3 copies of Imperm, which again, these can be interchangeable when you're siding out. 3 copies of Evenly Matched, incredibly good at this point in time, I believe. And the 1 of Imperial Order, sometimes you have to go first and sometimes you see it. It essentially wins games for you. So yeah, that is pretty good for the main deck. I'm very pleased with how it's been performing. Now let's talk about the extra deck. We have 2 copies of Sword Soul Grandmaster Chi Zhao. This synchro monster is pretty broken. It's a level 8 synchro, 2800 attack. So if it's synchro summoned, you can add to your hand or banish a Sword Soul card from your deck. And it also has a quick effect that lets you banish a Sword Soul card or worm monster from your hand or graveyard to essentially negate the effects of a face-up monster on your opponent's field. You can only use one of its effects per turn, but normally if you're going first, you use its effect to search, or if you're going second, you can use its effect to negate effects or stuff, but most of the time you're going to use its search effect, which can be chain blocked using the effects of your Tenyi main deck monsters, your Sword Soul main deck monsters. I do apologise. 1 copy of the level 10 Sword Soul Supreme Sovereign Cheng Ying, gains 100 attack for all of each of your banished cards, each banished card, and debuffs your opponent's monsters for each Banish card times 100, and if a card becomes banished while it's on the field, you can banish a card on your opponent's field and in their graveyard, which is insane. It can also protect itself by banishing a card from your graveyard as well. So you can essentially target it with Blackout, protect it by banishing a worm or any card in your graveyard, and then when a card gets banished, it will trigger afterwards, after that chain resolves, to banish and banish again, pretty much. So that's pretty awesome. One Baron de Fleur. I packed this the other day, so I wasn't expecting to own one of these, but yes, I do. Incredible card, level 10, Omni Negate, pops cards, tags out. It's pretty good, pretty fantastic. One Chao Feng. This card can be used if you know you're going up against a primarily light-based strategy, like Cybers, Drytron, ABC, any of those sort of roguish decks. This can put a stop to if you use Baxia as material, so it has quite a bit of utility. Speaking of Baxia, we're running 2 of it. It's a soft once per turn. Sorry, it's a non-once per turn, double spin back, depending on the different original attributes used for its synchro summon, and it can also pop a card on the field to revive one of your level 4 or lower monsters in the graveyard, which is incredible. So such good utility. One Yazi. It's a bit awkward to bring out, but it can bring worms out of your deck if you are able to resolve it. One Dragite for the negation. One Draco Berserker, incredibly underrated card. I would recommend playing this. It can really hurt decks that can special summon their monsters from hand as activations, because you can just banish that monster straight away. 2 copies of Monk. I think 2 is perfect ratio. One Shaman. I think Shaman's fantastic, because even though it locks you into 10-year extra deck effects for the rest of the turn, you're usually going into this at the end to bring out a Draco or something. One Wind Verdant. This is really good because the deck is the meta is currently populated by a lot of wind monsters, and you can just revive them from your opponent's graveyard and kill them with it, essentially. And one Draco Master of the 10-year. This is my sort of flex spot. I don't know what to swap it out for. Maybe an Omega if I can get hold of one again. But yeah, that's essentially it. Incredible deck. I love this strategy so much. It's incredibly fun. If you're playing it, it's 10-year. If you're playing it pure, then it's pretty boring. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, it is fantastic. And it's really breathed new life into my playing of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I wouldn't have it any other way. And hopefully I can bring some locals reports to you guys in the future, depending on how things go. But yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for watching the video, guys. Once again, apologies for taking so long, but this was a project I've been working on, and hopefully it proves to bear fruit, shall we say. Anyway, that's been Al from Exiles, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much.